The Prix Galien is a welcome initiative to stimulate creative research and promote excellence. Barack Obama. The Galien Awards ceremony is considered the equivalent of the Oscars night for the innovators in the labs and awards every year the best pharmaceutical product, the best biotechnology product, the best medical technology, best digital health, best incubator accelerator, best startup.
This is the right event, on the right issue, at the right time.
I thank His Excellency, the President, for bringing Prix Galien to Africa, and I look forward to the day when we will celebrate an African winner of the Prix Galien.
I'm particularly grateful to receive this award.
The awards are among the highest honors in science and commerce because they lead to improvement in the human condition.
The Prix Galien Awards recognize the world's brightest minds and most innovative companies. They are a true celebration of the hard work required to produce life-changing interventions.
That is what makes us optimistic about the future.
Congratulations to all of you.
Make a difference. Join the Galien Foundation.
Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us. My name is Alison Holland. I'm the Executive General Manager for Decentralized Clinical Trials at Medable, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the Galien Foundation Week of Innovation webinars. The objective of this week is to provide additional content and background for our largest annual event, the Prix Galien USA Awards, to be held tomorrow, Thursday, in conjunction with our annual Galien Forum of speakers representing top scientific experts and leaders in global health. We developed this new webinar series to give our nominees for Best Pharmaceutical, Best Biotech, Best MedTech, Best Digital Solutions and Best Startup, Accelerator and Incubator products greater visibility in describing their journey of medical discovery. This year, Galien USA Awards has a record 147 nominees across our 6 categories from over 126 companies, covering 15 diverse therapeutic areas, ranging from cancer, cardiology and neurosciences to infectious diseases and very rare genetic diseases and vaccines. And we'll be looking closely at the products in all of the critical areas throughout the week. For today's webinar, we're going to be looking at the best pharmaceutical category, which is our focus today. And there have been over 56 webinars due to the large number of products represented in this important field. And in this next hour, we are devoting that time to 3 nominees in the antiviral drugs and women's health arenas. Included in our webinar time today is some time for audience questions, so please feel free to put any questions that you would like to nominate through to the question and answer functionality on the meeting invite here. And so without further ado, I'd like to move us into our discussion, and I'll start by introducing the 3 nominee representatives who are joining me for this webcast today. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Graham Dixon. Dr. Dixon is the Chief Scientific Officer at Mithra Pharmaceuticals based in Europe. He is the CSO and Head of R&D at Mithra Pharmaceuticals. In his 27-year career in the pharmaceutical industry, he has worked in a range of R&D management positions at AstraZeneca and in C-level management positions in several biotech companies as COO, CSO, and other leadership positions. He has played a leadership role in the successful regulatory clearance of 3 compounds and 12 proof of concept studies, 2 successful IPOs, and 10 clinical stage licensing deals, and is an experienced non-executive director and board chairman, as well as advisor to several venture capital organizations and their portfolio companies. I'm also delighted to be joined by Dr. Kimberly Smith. Dr. Smith is Head of Research and Development and Chief Scientific Officer at ViiV Healthcare, where she oversees the development of marketed and pipeline assets. ViiV Healthcare, through a patient-centered approach to innovation, aims to deliver a variety of safe and effective medications to meet the needs of patients throughout the treatment spectrum. The breadth of their HIV R&D pipeline reflects their commitment to the development of medicines for people living with HIV across the world. And since joining ViiV in 2013, Dr. Smith has led the expansion and prevention of HIV disease, including the successful development of ViiV's 2DR program. And she also oversees ViiV's discovery and early development pipeline and development of assets for the treatment of pediatric HIV and AIDS and HIV prevention. Prior to joining ViiV Healthcare, Dr. Smith spent 20 years as an HIV clinician and researcher, and she served as principal investigator at the Rush University Medical Center clinical research site of the AIDS Clinical Trials Group, also serving on the ACTG Executive Committee and a number of board and scientific chair positions over the time, in addition to publishing over 150 articles, abstracts, and manuscripts. Dr. Smith is highly recognized. In 2008, was recognized with the Black AIDS Institute Heroes in the Struggles Award for Patient Care and Advocacy, through to 2020, where Dr. Smith was honoured with the National Medical Association's Scroll of Merit, the organisation's highest honour for her groundbreaking research and leadership in the development of a new treatment paradigm for people living with HIV. And thirdly, we're honoured to be joined by Dr. Juan Ferreira as the Chief Medical Officer at Myovant Sciences, a healthcare company that aspires to refine patient care for women and for men through purpose-driven science, empowering medicines, and transformative advocacy. At Myovant, he oversees the development of preclinical and clinical assets in the pipeline, as well as the medical affairs organization. He earned his MD and completed his postgraduate specialist training in obstetrics and gynecology in Columbia. And prior to joining Myovant, Dr. Ferreira was the Senior Vice President of Clinical Development at Shionogi and spent over a decade at Merck & Co, where he was Executive Director of Clinical Research in Women's Health. Similarly to our other speakers, Dr. Ferreira has published extensively many articles, abstracts, and manuscripts across multiple therapeutic areas, including women's health, diabetes, infectious diseases, and oncology. He's a strong advocate of girls' and women's rights and works towards helping them live their life at the fullest, enabled by their health. For everyone joining us, there are accessible links to short 100-word statements submitted by each of the companies on their nominated products. Those are in the chat function here, as well as a link through the Galien website. So please do take a look at those. As we move forward, I'm really going to invite our speakers here to address a number of questions initially, to give you a little more flavour and background as to the struggles and the breakthroughs that they've made in order to be here today as these nominated companies, and the incredible progress that they have achieved. So I'm going to ask each of our speakers in turn to really address from three perspectives: why their company chose to focus on the disease state and indication associated with their product, the measurable insight that they may be able to cite around the clinical outcomes for patients with their products, and then the challenges that their company confronted in transitioning from early proof of concept to human trials and ultimately to market authorization. So to kick us off, maybe I can invite Dr. Dixon to take us forward, and if you'd be kind enough to maybe address those three questions with the flavour of your experience.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Alien. It's a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon to represent Mithra Pharmaceuticals. We are a biotech based in Liège in Belgium. We're about 300 people. We're publicly listed on the Euronext. and our focus is completely on women's health, and we are trying to bring new innovations into the women's health space. The product that we are talking to you about today is called Nextstellis in the USA. It's a new oral contraceptive. And I think trying to now explain why we thought there was a need for a new contraceptive. I think it's fairly well known that with oral contraceptive pills, of which ethinyl estradiol represents about 99% of the estrogens that are present in these combined oral contraceptive pills, they have a safety risk. This was compounded actually in the early 2000s when the Women's Health Initiative performed a study which actually concluded that there were risks, cardiovascular risks, and also breast cancer risks, as well as risks with dementia. So that obviously fueled concern. The ethylene estradiol actually was discovered in 1943. It's a synthetic derivative of estradiol, the normal female sex hormone, and it was developed to be more stable in the body and therefore longer lasting. It's well known that major side effects of the estrogen part of the pill is to embolic events, so deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary emboli. And so there is really a medical need to give women a more safe and effective pill, shall we say. The data, I think, is fairly conclusive that the ethylene estradiol is the culprit in the pill, showing increased risks of venous thromboembolic events. There's plenty clinical literature on that. And so over the past almost 80 years, physicians and industrialists have been trying to reduce the risk of these thromboembolic events by reducing the dose of the estrogen, but also by playing about with the progesterone or progestin that is part of the combined oral pill. There are risks with that. I mean, as you reduce the estrogen dose, you actually interfere with the control of the menstrual cycle, the bleeding that the woman would experience. And so there has been success in reducing the risk of the venous thromboembolic events, but it's really at the expense of the quality of life and potentially compliance because of bleeding events with taking the pill. So that certainly leaves room for improvement, shall we say. And we have been working on a new estrogen. It's called estetrol, or E4. It's a fetal estrogen rather than an adult estrogen. It's produced by the fetus during pregnancy by the liver. It's a native and selective estrogen. And I think this represents the first innovation in terms of estrogen therapies in the last almost 80 years since the introduction of ethylene estradiol. It has a completely novel mode of action in terms of its interaction and resulting effects on the receptors. It has very good tissue selectivity, and it also has a very different metabolic profile, all of which lead this to be a very attractive estrogen to be able to combine with a progestin in an oral contraceptive. The E4 has all the positive benefits of estrogen, so it has the effects on the brain, controlling ovulation in terms of the contraceptive activity. It has beneficial effects on the uterus, the bone, the vagina, and the cardiovascular system. But it doesn't have some of the deleterious effects or the effects that concern women in terms of the effect on the liver, which is where the coagulation factors are and hemostatic factors are synthesized, and also in terms of its effect on breast tissue. So we really have evidence now that we have a a new compound, a new innovation that will give women the choice in contraceptives that will allow them to be confident that they have contraception, but also to reduce the risks of some of these factors that people have been concerned about over the last 80 years. So in terms of the question on the measurable impact on clinical outcomes, we saw many elements within the phase 3 development program, but I'd like to focus on two that we really feel are differentiating features in the innovation. The first is the activity in terms of making the menstrual cycle predictive. It's regular. In terms of the phase 3 development, we had to give women 13 cycles, so 13 months of treatment. And in that, we had 87% of the women in those studies had regular scheduled bleeding, so it's a regular menstrual cycle when it was tested over the 13 cycles, sorry. And they also had a very low rate of unscheduled bleeding. So that's bleeding when you shouldn't, when you're actually taking the active component of the pill, with people experiencing less than 1 day of that unscheduled bleeding per cycle. This is obviously very good for a woman's quality of life, but it also is very beneficial in terms of compliance to taking the oral contraceptive if the woman can have no unscheduled bleeding, but also regular menstrual bleeding. So we see this as a major advantage of the product. The second area I would like to emphasize is on the profile for hemostatic parameters. These are predictors of potentially the risk of thromboembolic events. And we see with E4 drospirenone, which is our product Nextstellis, that we had a limited impact on the coagulation factors compared to other oral contraceptives. And this, we believe, is really suggestive of a lower rate of VTE risk. If we actually analyze the data from our phase 3 program, we had one VTE event in the whole treatment program, which actually represented 0.06% of VTE. With other products, for example, ethylene estradiol netol, they had 3 VTEs, which is about 0.18% in the phase 3 program. A vaginal ring that's available in the US also had about 4 VTEs, which is 0.34%. And then EE-LNG patch had also 4 VTEs at a rate of 0.2%. So as you can see there, we have potentially less VTE risk than those other products. They're small numbers of patients. We are now actually just about to start on our post-approval safety study, which is specifically designed to look at the risk of venous thromboembolism in a large sample size of women. So that will then hopefully clearly demonstrate the benefits of our product over other products in this area. So in terms of the challenges we faced, we're obviously a small biotech company based in Europe, in Liège, in Belgium. And we actually had no experience initially in clinical development. Certainly when we got through to phase 3, we didn't have that experience, and certainly approval and market introduction. We are targeting a global market essentially, and we have to be able to operate in all major jurisdictions. So those are just some things we had to deal with in terms of the team and the network of consultants, etc., that we developed. I think one of the major technical challenges we faced, those of you who know anything about steroid chemistry, it's not simple. So actually to develop a robust and innovative synthetic route to get to our product was a key challenge, and probably one of the critical path activities that we had to resolve. I'm pleased to say we now have resolved that. But of course, there were challenges in terms of making the cost of goods low enough to be able to make this a viable product, which we did successfully. There are differences in the regions as well in terms of the requirements for the regulatory endpoints or the way the endpoints are calculated. Also, in terms of the situations, various parameters that the population, so the BMIs are different between the US and Europe, which can have impact on the outputs of the study. So those are things we had to sort of deal with and learn from scratch, so to speak, as a small biotech. We also had to think about education involved in this new estrogen. People could think this is just any other estrogen, so we've had a really concerted campaign to really educate the scientific and medical community during the development program about the unique properties, the mode of action, the metabolic profile of this estrogen. And that now will continue with our partner Main Pharma in the US, who will use that type of approach to actually get to both the physicians and the women who will take this medication. So that was just a quick summary of some of the challenges that we faced with this new innovative contraceptive development.
Dr. Dixon, thank you. That's an impressive story and amazing against all those adversities to be able to bring a successful product forward. So obviously a very well-earned nomination here, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Maybe I can address those similar questions to Dr. Smith next. I'm sure in that story there are aspects that resonate, but I'd love to hear from your perspective and the development of your products.
Absolutely. Well, we're extremely excited about this nomination, and thank you very much for having us and the opportunity to talk about what we're doing. ViiV Healthcare is the only company that is 100% focused on HIV. And because of that, we believe that it is our responsibility to take a deeper and broader interest in HIV and AIDS than any company has before. And we have a motto that we will leave no person living with HIV behind. And so we live that every day. And so our ultimate goal is to put ourselves out of business and to find a cure for HIV and end the epidemic. But we still have a long way to go. So our society has made some incredible progress in the fight against HIV over the past 40 years that we've been dealing with this disease. But there are still, in the US, about 1.2 million people living with HIV. And around the world, there are roughly 38 million people living with HIV, around 25 million of those being in Africa. 1.1 million individuals were newly diagnosed with HIV in Africa in 2018. So we still have a major challenge. And so getting to the point of being able to cure HIV and also prevent HIV is really a high priority for us. And so we wanted to focus on moving beyond treatment. So we have a number of agents for treatment, and we've been quite successful there, but we wanted to move into the prevention space and build on what had been done up until we began this episode. And so individuals have been able to take PrEP since 2012. It's been approved, and it's been a pill every day. But despite that, as I mentioned, there's still millions of infections that occur every year. And in the US in 2019, there were 35,000 new infections in the US. And so we still need to have more options for PrEP. Some of the challenges around daily PrEP are that individuals would have, they would forget to take their pills, or they had to take a pill every day. There was still some stigma associated with taking PrEP because the pill for PrEP is the same as the pill for HIV treatment. And so in some cases, individuals were stigmatized by taking a medicine for HIV treatment, that individuals might see it and suspect that they are living with HIV, which we know is still a terribly stigmatized disease. And so we thought that we could make some change by bringing a long-acting medicine, a long-acting prevention agent to the field in order to take away that need for daily pills. and hopefully to take away some of that stigma and give people an ability to live their lives without the worry of becoming HIV infected, and really move the needle when it comes to preventing HIV. So we have a agent in our repertoire called cabotegravir. It is an integrase strand transfer inhibitor. So it basically blocks one of the key steps in HIV replication. And we know that that medication can be long acting, can be dosed every 2 months. And so we saw that as the potential to basically bring a new medicine to change the way HIV can be prevented. So we started with testing this product in preclinical studies in non-human primates, and were able to demonstrate its efficacy. We did some early studies in individuals who were not HIV infected to make sure that it would be safe and that we could have the levels that we needed. And then we ultimately moved into large phase 3 studies in order to demonstrate that this medication could be successful with prevention. And so the name of the medication is Apretude, and we got it approved at the end of last year. And I think we think of it as, and the field thinks of it as, really a watershed moment for HIV prevention, because for the first time ever, people who are vulnerable to acquiring HIV had an option beyond the daily pill. So what are the measurable outcomes? Well, let me tell you what happened in those 2 pivotal studies. So they were really, I'm really excited to talk about these studies because we really went to great lengths to make them live our values and be representative and have the populations that were most impacted by HIV included in them. And we did them in partnership with the HIV Prevention Trials Network of the NIH. And so these studies were called HPTN 083 and HPTN 084. So HPTN 083 focused on men who have sex with men and transgender women. And it enrolled individuals in the United States, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. HPTN 084 was all cisgender women, and they were all located in sub-Saharan Africa. So the HPTN 083 study had roughly 4,500 enrollees, and the 084 study roughly 3,200. So you basically had around 7,700 individuals participating in the 2 different studies across 13 different countries. So the results were remarkable. So in the 083 study, we were able to show that long-acting cabotegravir was 67% more effective at preventing HIV than the current standard of care oral pill. And in the cisgender women study, 084, we were able to demonstrate that it was 90% more effective than the standard of care. Now that's game-changing. It was superiority, statistically superior in both studies. And I can tell you that literally when the results of these studies came across, lots of tears were shed because we were so happy to actually finally have a study that showed for women that we had an effective drug for preventing HIV. Many previous studies of PrEP for women had not been successful. And this was really groundbreaking in that sense. So we were extremely excited. But we were also excited because, again, we enrolled the populations that were most impacted. And so in the 083 study, roughly half of the population was enrolled from the United States. And in the United States, the population that is most impacted with new cases of HIV are Black men who have sex with men. And so we made sure that at least 50% of the individuals enrolled from the US were Black men who have sex with men. And that was really quite challenging and a major accomplishment because previous PrEP studies had not represented Black MSM. And this is particularly important when you come to a community with a new agent, a new opportunity, a new tool to prevent HIV. coming with information that reflects them was particularly important. And then the 084 study was done in sub-Saharan Africa, where the numbers of women, really young women and adolescent girls who become HIV infected is astronomical. And so we were really excited to enroll that population. So roughly 57% of the women who enrolled in the study were between the ages of 18 and 25, which is the highest percentage of individuals who are acquiring HIV in sub-Saharan Africa. So we were able to reach the populations who needed it most. Now, when you think about challenges, I would say one of the challenges was just what I said, making sure that we enrolled the populations that were impacted the most, because often previous trials just had not included those populations. Too many previous PrEP trials did not include enough people of color and enough women. One of the other challenges that we experienced was this thing that we've been hearing a lot about called COVID-19. And so our studies actually some of them were completing during the COVID period. And just to describe how cabotegravir is given, individuals get an intramuscular injection every 2 months in the clinic. And so if clinics are closing and people aren't able to come into the clinic because of COVID, that becomes a major challenge to the study. But what I can say, and what I'm so proud of, is the sites that participated in the trial, particularly the sites in sub-Saharan Africa, which were really hit very hard at the time that we were really trying to finish the study. They just did heroic work to make sure that individuals would get their doses. And that led to these incredible outcomes. One of the other challenges, now that the product is approved, and as I mentioned, is approved in the United States at the end of last year, our biggest challenge now is going from a product that has demonstrated great efficacy in a clinical trial to bringing it to the real world and having the individuals who really could benefit from it, know about it, and be ready to use it. And so we're doing a number of implementation studies. One of them is called Ebony, and is focused on Black women in the US. And the other study is called Pillar, and is focusing on Black men who have sex with men. These are implementation studies to help some of the clinics that see these patients or that have outreach to these individuals who might be vulnerable, and help them in figuring out ways to bring individuals in and be able to implement this unique, exciting new tool for HIV prevention. So we're extremely excited about being at this point. We're looking to see this product get approved around the world, because we really do believe that this is game changing. This is that's a word that we didn't make up, that is said about this product, and we're looking to see it change the trajectory of the HIV pandemic around the world. And so that's Apretude in a nutshell. Ali, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. So thank you so much for sharing that story. It's inspiring to hear the dedication and focus, as well as just, overcoming those obstacles. As we all know, drug development is hard enough at the best of times without then having a global pandemic, and working through those challenges on top of everything else adds even more commendability to what you and your colleagues have achieved over the course of the last few years. So thank you for sharing that. And maybe if I can pass the same 3 questions over to Dr. Arjona Ferreira and look at that from the Myovant perspective as well. I'm sure some of that resonated true for you also.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ali. And I have to say that we are very, from Myovant perspective, we are very honored to be here. And I am personally humbled by the stories of both Dr. Dixon and Dr. Smith. I think that there's many things that resonate to me about the work they've done, the value their products are bringing. And I'll highlight 2 things, and you'll see in a little bit why it's so important. One is the commitment to women. I think that there is so much need across the board and in for women in society, but particularly that is reflected in women's health and the need to understand better women's health and generate better solutions for women in their lives across the board. So that is very inspiring. And the other thing that is inspiring is the focus on diversity in clinical trials and diversity in generating solutions for underserved communities, like is the case, which is the case for women in general, but more Black women and brown women, as well as Dr. Smith pointed out, men that have sex with men, and also the transgender community. So all that resonates much to me. I'll tell you about my event. We are a relatively young company. We started in 2016. And the company was created around two products that we licensed from Takeda. And I'm going to talk about one, which is relugolix. It's a GnRH receptor antagonist that basically inhibits the release of LH and FSH from the pituitary, and then in that way can inhibit ovarian function, and in men can suppress testosterone secretion. So we created this company really with a commitment to redefining care for men and for women. And we did it in leveraging the science we had, the medicines we had, and a big commitment to advocacy. We have created a pillar for advocacy that we dedicate a lot of time and effort across all the conditions. So when we got relugolix from Takeda, it was at a end of phase 2 stage. They had explored this product for the treatment of symptoms of uterine fibroids, the treatment of symptoms of endometriosis, as well for treatment of prostate cancer in men. Because it inhibits, relugolix inhibits ovarian function in women, it lowers significantly estradiol, or the estrogen that's produced by the ovary. And in that way, it is able to treat symptoms of uterine fibroids or endometriosis, which are estrogen-dependent conditions. However, if you lower estradiol too much, you have side effects. You have hot flushes like those in menopause. You can see bone density loss, which, if it's substantial, limit the duration of time that you can use this medication. So we were faced with having a drug that had a lot of potential, a lot of demonstrated therapeutic effects in these conditions, but with a safety profile that made it not able to be used for long term. And what we realized when we started the company is that for women with uterine fibroids, for women with endometriosis, the solution today is surgery. Many, many women would lose their uterus every year because of these two conditions. In the United States alone, between 500,000 and 600,000 hysterectomies occur every year. And that is pretty substantial. And what we learned through the process is that 2 out of 3 women would rather not have major surgery like a hysterectomy, but there were no good options for medical treatment for these conditions. And in endometriosis, they would have to undergo recurrent laparoscopic surgeries to remove the endometriosis. And therefore, we wanted to find a solution that was long-term, that provided the option of long-term medical treatment and an alternative to surgery. But again, so we had this balance between a drug that worked but could not be used long-term and the clear unmet need for long-term medical treatment. So what we decided is that we saw an opportunity to leveraging relugolix and creating a combination product that contained also a small amount of estradiol, not the ethinyl estradiol, but estradiol, identical to the one that's produced by the ovary, and a small amount of a progestin. That estradiol would ensure that the levels of estrogen would not go below a certain threshold, and in that way preventing the hot flushes, the bone loss, etc. And the small amount of progestin would protect the inner lining of the uterus, the endometrium, from the effects of estrogen, when that's something that we know has to be done for long-term treatment. And then as a brand new company, 6 months old, we launched 5 major multinational phase 3 studies across 3 indications. I don't know that it's been done before. It was crazy and it was really hard, as all of you that have worked in drug development know what it takes to launch one major multinational phase 3 study. We went into 5, 2 in uterine fibroids, 2 in endometriosis, and 1 on prostate cancer. And I am happy to report that we're successful in all of them, and that led to the product that we're talking about today, which is called Myfembree, which is this combination of relugolix 40 milligrams, estradiol 1 milligram, and norethindrone acetate 0.5 milligrams. In these studies, we made a focus particularly in the uterine fibroids study, where it is well known that Black women or women of color have a significantly higher incidence of uterine fibroids. They are diagnosed earlier. They are twice as likely to get a hysterectomy relative to their white counterparts. That we wanted to ensure that we had studied that population. Around 50% of our uterine fibroids studies were participants were Black women, and therefore we were able to show not only the efficacy and the safety of a product in general population, but we also were to show that it was also efficacious and well tolerated in women of color who have a higher unmet need. Our programs were 2 years in duration, so we've been able to generate that long-term safety data and efficacy data that we wanted to generate. And then right now, Myfembree is approved for uterine fibroids, treatment of symptoms of uterine fibroids in the US and Europe. And literally just in the month of August, we were also approved in the US for the treatment of moderate to severe pain of endometriosis. So we are very excited about that. We believe that we will be able to make a difference by providing this non-surgical option that is uterine sparing, but that is efficacious and will improve the quality of life of these patients. So why are we so confident that we're going to be able to do that in our phase 3 studies, which we call Liberty 1 and Liberty 2 for uterine fibroids, and Spirit 1 and Spirit 2 for endometriosis? In uterine fibroids, we were able to see that within 24 months, we saw on average an 85% reduction in menstrual blood loss. Heavy menstrual bleeding is the most common symptom of uterine fibroids, can lead to anemia and a lot of other consequences for women. And we know that in prior studies, women have said that a 22% reduction in their bleeding was meaningful to them. So we saw 85% on average, which we were very, very impressed and we're very, very proud of, because that's the kind of benefit we wanted to see. We also saw a very significant reduction of around 25% on their pain associated with uterine fibroids. And more importantly, we were able to show in our longer term studies that efficacy is sustained for up to 2 years. On the other side, we measured bone density because we wanted to make sure that we were not seeing the downside of the antagonism. And we saw that over 2 years, there was a small bone loss that was consistent with that adaptation of the bone to these lower levels of estrogen that women were seeing with our treatment. But through those 2 years, the average bone loss that we observed was less than 1%, which we believe is comparable to many other medications that are chronically used that affect hormones. And we were very pleased with that because we accomplished what we thought we were going to accomplish. So the two challenges that we face for that, before I get to that, we've shown now similar results with women with endometriosis. Just this week at ASRM, we presented that after 2 years of treatment, we saw a reduction. We saw that 95% of women that had severe dysmenorrhea at baseline saw minimal to no pain after 2 years. So we are very pleased with that. And but the challenges were two that I want to highlight. One was, how do we make this combination at the speed that we were developing this product into a simple solution for women and physicians. We wanted to have a one pill once a day that could be used for both indications, same dose. But we just started in phase 3. We were using co-administration in our study. So our CMC team and our early development team worked tirelessly to develop a formulation of our fixed dose combination with the 3 components. And then we run what I believe is the most complicated bioequivalence study. We had to succeed in 16 endpoints to be able to claim bioequivalence, and we did. So right now we have MYFEMBREE is a one pill once a day solution that can be used for both uterine fibrosis and endometriosis at the same dose and same regimen. And then the other challenge was I'm blanking on what I thought was the other challenge. But so the major challenge was to get this fixed dose combination and to demonstrate both the benefit and the prevention of the risk, the mitigation of the risk, and we did that. And so we're very pleased with what we've seen. We're very proud of what we've done in our team and the contributions that we believe we're making to women.
Again, many congratulations. There's so many adversities you faced along that route, and to keep that diligence and relentless focus to bring those solutions to so many women around the world is hugely commendable. You know, it's an incredible honor to be hosting this discussion amongst the 3 of you, because what each of your companies has done under your leadership has really been phenomenal to change the game, to really not just look for something else, but to address completely unmet need or significantly suboptimally met needs in the past. It strikes me that there is a path forward for each of you around then looking at the accessibility and how do we get these incredible new treatments into the right hands of the right patients around the world. And I'd love your thoughts between you in our final 10 minutes or so of discussion here around just what's it going to take, and how as an industry and how as a health and life sciences world should we be thinking about that, and insights from your perspectives as to some of those key challenges and how you're going to address that. So maybe
I'm happy to start. So, you know, I talked about the unmet need that really exists around the world, but most importantly, most dramatically in sub-Saharan Africa. And so we are very committed to making cabotegravir for PrEP or Apretude available in low and middle income countries. And we've been successful at doing that before. We have a track record. And so the first medicine that we developed as a company, ViiV, called dolutegravir or Tivicay, is the most potent antiretroviral therapy that has ever been made to date. And it is the basis of the most common medicines in developed world, and actually now in the low and middle income countries. So we as a company have given voluntary licenses to generic companies to be able to produce dolutegravir in a fixed dose combination in order to make it available in low and middle income countries. And as a result of that, there are now 22 million people who are on dolutegravir based regimens as a result of our access commitments. And so our intention with cabotegravir for PrEP is to really follow a similar type of pattern and work with the medicine's patent pool and make our medicine available in those low and middle income countries, because that is how we will change the trajectory of HIV pandemic, by making this available to individuals regardless of the country that they live in and the the GDP of their country. And if they have vulnerability, we want to be able to help. And so that commitment is strong from us.
Right, very impressive. Thank you. And Dr. Dixon, I can see you're preparing.
We have a slightly different perspective because we actually are an R&D company, so we take the product up to approval, and I guess our aim is to find appropriate partners who can really make a difference and commercialize and make a success of the product. We've done that very well with our contraceptive. The Nextstellis, as it is in the US, is in the capable hands of Main Pharma. Also, they have the rights in Australia. So they're actually it's now about a year from launch in the US, and I think the biggest challenge for us in the contraceptive space is the perception of hormones. So I think a lot of the activities that Maine are doing in the US are educating physicians to that you know there's a new product out there that has a safer profile, can benefit women. They're having success there. We also need to get to the women themselves, and of course in the US you can use direct to consumer advertising, so that has I think just about started. So we're really trying to get over the perception that hormones are bad, that was really left in the early 2000s by the Women's Health Initiative. I think 20 years later now, things are starting to be published that actually show the true perspective and the data that was generated. So I think times are changing, but it's a challenge. That's the job that our partners have to do now to get this out to the women and to be able to get to those patients.
Yeah, I think education is going to be a huge part of that, isn't it? And just educating that there are alternative options and why those options might be more palatable, safer, or more efficacious. And I imagine that's a similar story for yourselves at Myovant, and looking at how are you going to educate that population about the new choices that are available safely to patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's much to do, right, in that front. I think that there are multiple things we do to try to expand the access and really get to the populations that need our drugs. One is definitely education, and I think we're leveraging the latest updates on the ACOG bulletin on guidelines for treatment of uterine fibroids that really highlight the disparities in care, particularly in this condition of uterine fibroids with regards to Black women. It highlights the importance of joint decision making by physicians and their patients. There has to be all the options have to be on the table so that there's no one size fits all solution, that women can understand what's available to them and then make the choice with their physician on what is the best solution for the life. So we're leveraging that in terms of education. We are leveraging, as I mentioned earlier, we feel very strongly about advocacy. We believe that we are not going to be able to solve for this alone. So we work very closely with advocacy groups that are really advancing the conversation, removing stigma and taboo about menstrual periods. You know, that's a big deal. So being comfortable talking about it is the first part, so that we can women feel comfortable saying that their period is heavy or they have pain or many other things, and also empowering them to go and talk to their physicians about their symptoms and hopefully have that joint decision making. We do have a patient assistance program for people that can't afford our medicines in the US. We do commercialize our product in the US with Pfizer as our partner, but we do have that. And then we work with partners around the world to commercialize in other areas. Myfembree is approved in Europe, in the UK as Rieco, different brand, and that's a longer story. And then it's also approved in Australia, and it's in the process of being approved in other parts. So we do believe that we won't be able to make the difference that we aim to make unless we put the drug in the hands of the patients that actually need it.
Well, I On behalf of Galien and all of our audiences around the world, I really would love to thank you all for these inspiring stories. It is no mean feat to get to nomination and be part of the Galien Innovation Week here and have your progress and your products and your hard work recognized. So my sincere congratulations to all of you and the teams that you're working with around the world, and all those patients who have contributed to this research so far to change the lives for women around the world. It's truly impressive, and I hope I send you my very best wishes and luck for the award ceremony and the ongoing successes of your products. This has been a great discussion, and I've really enjoyed the privilege of hosting it today. I would very much like to thank you all, Dr. Dixon, Dr. Smith, Dr. Jonas Ferreira. This has been brilliant. So the webcast is viewable on the Galien Foundation's homepage. And I'd just like to highlight that tomorrow is Galien's Jubilee Forum. It's going to begin at 7:30 a.m. and includes a group CEO keynoter. This will be followed by a presentation of the 2022 Roy Vangelos Pro Bono Humanum Award winner at 6:30 p.m. and ending with the awards gala dinner. Both of the latter will be held at the American Museum of Natural History. So we will look forward to seeing that award ceremony. We will look forward to seeing everyone up on stage and getting the well-deserved recognition. So thank you all very much for such an inspiring discussion today. And I wish you most success as you move forward.
Thank you so much, Ali. Great to be here.
Thank you very much.